Okay, let's do this. All right, welcome. This is session number 54. All right, chugging along. All right, and this section 54 is still in chapter 7, section 10, X, Roman numeral 10, the confusion of pain and joy. Right, on page 133 in the text. All right, the confusion of pain and joy. Okay. And in the first sentence and in the first paragraph, he's going to mention a word, premises. Premises. All right. I mean, it could be an establishment, a building, or whatever, but in this case, a premise is a statement or an idea. All right, a statement or an idea, let me read this. Taken to be true. All right, so it's a statement or an idea taken to be true. All right, on which an argument or reasoning is based. Okay, so, right? It's a statement that is taken to be true, on which you base your argument, all right? Or your belief system, or, your reasoning, okay? So, let's begin. All right, the confusion of pain and joy. The kingdom is the result of premises, just as the world is. You may have carried the ego's reasoning to its logical conclusion, which is total confusion about everything. All right? If you really saw this result, you could not want it. Right? The only reason you could possibly want anything, any part of it, is because you do not see the whole of it. You are willing to look at the ego's premises, but not on their logical outcome. Is it not possible that you have done the same thing with the premises of God? Your creations are the logical outcome of His premises. His thinking has established them for you. They are exactly where they belong. They belong in your mind, as a part of your identification with His. But your state of mind and your recognition of what is in it depend on what you believe about your mind. Whatever these beliefs may be, they are the premises that will determine what you accept into your mind. Okay? The state of your mind and your recognition of what it is, of what is in it, depend on what you believe about your mind. Okay, so what is it that I believe about my mind? I have two choices in my experience here. All right, I can believe that I have separated from God. I can believe that I have separated from my source. Okay? I can believe I'm outside of heaven. It's all the same thing, okay? All right. Or I can believe that I am at home with God. Okay? I can believe that I never left home. All right? So I can believe that I'm guilty of destroying the kingdom, or I can believe in my own innocence. All right? These are the premises. They're all the same things: separation, oneness, okay? Outside the kingdom, never left the kingdom, okay? These are the premises, all right? And so what is in my mind depends on the premises, what I let into it, all right? Whatever the beliefs may be, they are the premises that will determine what you accept into your mind, okay? So, he says, you look at the ego's premises, but you don't look at the logical outcome. The logical outcome of the ego's premises, which is separation, is constant conflict, right? Uncertainty, loneliness, and constant fear, as Jesus would say. All right? He says, who would want that? If you look at the logical conclusions, who could want that? All right? And the logical outcomes of the premise that I've never left my source is joy. All right? So there we have the confusion of pain and joy. All right? That's what the ego does. It makes us think that you're going to suffer some kind of loss, some kind of pain, all right, by going back into your mind to find your true being, your true self. All right? So, it says, your creations are the logical outcomes of God's premises. All right? God's premises is that you are. All right? You are as part of God. All right? I'll just take the part of God for a second, if you don't mind. You are as part of me. You are created in my image to do the things that I do. All right? And what is it that I do? I extend love. I extend joy. Okay? That's the outcomes of God's premises. So whatever these beliefs may be, they are premises that will determine what you accept into your mind. All right? Do I accept thoughts of the atonement, as it were? The innocence I never left, or do I accept thoughts that prove to me that I left my source? I'm divorced from love. Okay? So, paragraph 2. It is surely clear that you can both accept into your mind what is not there and deny what is. Yet the function God himself gave your mind through his, you may deny, but you cannot prevent. It is the logical outcome of what you are. The ability to see a logical outcome depends on the willingness to see it. Right? But its truth has nothing to do with your willingness. Truth is God's will. Share his will, and you share what he knows. Deny his will as yours, and you are denying his kingdom and yours. Excuse me. So, just to quickly go over that again in paragraph 2, he says, it's surely clear that you can both accept into your mind what is not there, the idea of separation, and deny what is, that you exist in the kingdom, that you are a thought in the mind of God. So you can deny that and accept the premise that you are separate. You're separate from that. He says you may deny that. You may deny the function, which is the extension of love, the extension of everything. All right? You may deny it, but you can't prevent it. All right? No matter how much we're not in touch with it. As Jesus would say, your other life continues. Okay? You are at home in God, dreaming of exile. Okay? You never left, but we're so firmly convinced that we did. All right? That's the premises of the ego's thought system, and it uses everything to prove that argument. I mean, and hey, it's very good at proving it. You know, all this solid stuff. Okay? I mean, really. And some of it is pretty amazing. You know, some of it is pretty cool to experience, but that's the purpose of it, is to keep us from remembering our true function, our true nature. Okay? So, the ability to see a logical outcome depends on the willingness to see it, but its truth has nothing to do with your willingness. In other places, Jesus says, your understanding makes no contribution to the truth. All right, it's like, I don't want to insult you or anything, but, you know, just because you don't understand it, just because you're not aware of it, doesn't mean it's not true. Doesn't mean that your other life is continuing. Your true nature is functioning, right? While you're dreaming otherwise, all right? Truth is God's will. Share his will and you share what he knows. Deny his will as yours and you're denying his kingdom and yours. All right? So when we deny that we are the Christ. We are the Christ consciousness. All right? We are the offspring of the original source. All right? When we're denying that, you're denying God's kingdom and yours. Okay? So, paragraph 3. And don't be afraid. See, being afraid of being the Christ, right, which is the offspring of God, okay? The ego will tell you right away, that thought is insane. Stop that. Don't say that to anybody. They'll think you're crazy. All right? My friend Emily used to make a little joke. She would say, I wasn't worried that he said he was the Christ. I was worried that he thought he was the only Christ. Okay? So we are all as one. The oneness, all right, is the Christ. All right? There's no particular person. All right? There's no particular person above everybody else. We are all as one, the Christ. Okay? So, the Holy Spirit will direct you only so as to avoid pain. Okay? Surely, no one would object to this goal if he recognized it. The problem is not whether the Holy Spirit, the problem is not whether what the Holy Spirit says is true, but whether you want to listen to what he says. You no more recognize what is painful than you know what is joyful, and are, in fact, very apt to confuse the two. Right? The Holy Spirit's main function is to teach you to tell them apart. What is joyful to you is painful to the ego. And as long as you are in doubt about what you are, you will be confused about joy and pain. This confusion is the cause of the whole idea of sacrifice. Right? Obey the Holy Spirit, and you will be giving up the ego. but you will be sacrificing nothing. On the contrary, you will be gaining everything. If you believed this, there would be no conflict. Okay? And you'll see, as you move along in your progression toward remembering who you are, that you'll become to be able to distinguish those warnings of the ego. Don't go there. Don't think that way. Don't say that. You know, don't do that. You're crazy. You know, you're gonna die. You're gonna leave all your loved ones. Right? You're never gonna see them again. You know, you're never gonna enjoy your life here on earth. Which, you know, the physical earth here, you know, is, you have to work at it to enjoy it, really. So, you don't have to work at joy when you're at home in God, right? You don't have to work at it. You don't have to buy any equipment, right? You don't have to buy any tickets, okay? You don't have to spend any money. There's nothing you have to do except realize who you really are. Okay? So, and he says the Holy Spirit will direct you. All right? Only to avoid pain. Right? So only to avoid the ego, which is uncertainty, loneliness, and constant fear. You know, smoothed over and whitewashed and fogged up by periods of happiness or, you know, laughter or, you know, what we think is joyful. Okay? And once again, I'll try to repeat my favorite words of some of my favorite words of William Butler Yeats, who said, being Irish, he had an abiding sense of gloom, right, which sustained him during temporary periods of joy. All right? And that's all I have to say about that. Okay? But the Holy Spirit will direct you, all right, so as to avoid pain. So let the Holy Spirit be your guide. Just let him be your guide. His main function is to teach you, to tell apart joy from pain. And you'll realize that when you are in the presence of the right mind, in the presence of the Holy Spirit, the memory of who you really are, you will experience a joy that wants to extend and envelop everyone. You will experience that joy. Okay? So, but the Holy Spirit will tell you you're going to have to sacrifice. Oh, you're going to lose this, you're going to lose that. You're not going to remember these people. You're going to lose your wife and your family or your husband, you know. No. That's incorrect, okay? And we learn that slowly but surely, right? Being in the presence of who you are is joyful, all right? And you'll see that you're not giving up anything. You're not sacrificing, all right? You will be relinquishing. You'll see that, oh, that stuff I was carrying, I don't need to carry it anymore. Okay? As Dr. Wapnick would say, I guarantee it. Okay? So, paragraph 4. This is why you need to demonstrate the obvious to yourself. Right? it is not obvious to you. You believe that doing the opposite of God's will can be better for you. You also believe that it is possible to do the opposite of God's will. Therefore, you believe that an impossible choice is open to you, and one which is both fearful and desirable. Yet God wills. He does not wish. Okay? Your will is as powerful as His because it is His. Right. The ego wishes do not mean anything because the ego wishes for the impossible. You can wish for the impossible, but you can will only with God. This is the ego's weakness and your strength. So God doesn't wish, He just wills. All right? This is my will. Oh, I lost my ear. Oh my goodness. Okay, we're back. All right? So God doesn't wish, He wills. And your will is as powerful as His because it is His, right? You are created as an extension of your Creator. The only difference between you and your Creator is that you did not create yourself. Only difference. All right? Only difference. Okay? So, your will is as powerful as His because it is His. The ego wishes do not mean anything. And what's the ego wish? To be separate. All right? I could be just like God, but I'm separate from God. Watch me. I'll create a universe. All right? I'll create all kinds of stuff. Okay? Or as Mrs. Gloria Wapnick would say, I'll miscreate. The Course uses the word make. So I'll make a whole bunch of stuff. Oh, I guess Jesus was a little ahead of the time when He said, you're going to make stuff up. All right? And that's what we do in the ego. We make it up. That's the ego's wish, to be separate and to prove that you're separate. Okay? So, He says, you can wish for the impossible. You can wish all you want to be separate from God. But you can only will with God. Right? This is the ego's weakness and your strength. So your will is God's will. So you can wish all you want for the impossible. But what's really true is that you have the same will as God, which means you're extending totality. You're extending the totality of the kingdom. That's what you do. All right? No matter what you think about yourself. Okay? Paragraph 5. The Holy Spirit always sides with you and with your strength. As long as you avoid His guidance in any way, you want to be weak. Yet weakness is frightening. What else, then, can this decision mean except that you want to be fearful? The Holy Spirit never asks for sacrifice, but the ego always does. When you are confused about this distinction in motivation, it can only be due to projection. Projection is a confusion in motivation, and given this confusion, trust becomes impossible. No one gladly obeys a guide he does not trust. But this does not mean that the guide is untrustworthy. In this case, it always means that the follower is. However, this too is merely a matter of his own belief. Believing that he can betray, he believes that everything can betray him. Yet this is only because he has elected to follow a false guide. Unable to follow this guidance without fear, he associates fear with guidance and refuses to follow any guidance at all. If the result of this decision is confusion, this is hardly surprising. Okay? And one of the things I get a kick out of when I read the text is that when Jesus says something like that, if the result of this decision is confusing, this is hardly surprising. And then you realize this whole paragraph was confusing. Okay? And it's just to me, it's a wonderful technique. All right? And it gets to be quite humorous after a while. Okay? And what he's saying is that because we automatically start to project, right? We believe that we separated from God, right? So we identify with that thought of the ego, the thought of separation. So we identify with that thought, and automatically we believe in betrayal. Okay? So first I believe I betrayed the oneness, I betrayed God, okay? But I can't stand that thought, so I repress it, and I project it. I project it outside of my mind. I project it onto God. I can't trust God. Can't trust that guidance. And really, you can't really trust the Holy Spirit. I mean, you can't trust the ego, all right? So that idea of the possibility of betrayal just gets projected out. And he says, so who can you trust? You know, after a while, you can't trust anything or anyone. All right? Or you don't trust, let's put it that way. All right? And he says, but, you know, of course, this is a matter of your own belief. All right? But just because you don't trust the Holy Spirit doesn't mean that the Holy Spirit is untrustworthy. Okay? It's just because your nutty belief system has confused you. Okay? And it's only because you've elected to follow false guidance. All right? And now you're unable to follow guidance without fear. Right? So therefore, you associate guidance with fear. Well, I don't know, can only go a little, can't trust this guy too much, you know? You always have to be on the alert for when are they going to trick you? When are they going to betray you? All right? He says, and, you know, and then you refuse to follow any guidance at all. All right? And if the result of this decision is confusion, this is hardly surprising. So now we're standing in the middle of this experience on earth, and we're confused. All right? Right? Like that poor soul in the beginning of Paul Simon's song, You Can Call Me Al. All right? The guy looks up, he doesn't even realize where he is. All right? So, and that's the way we walk around sometimes. You know, uncertain, confused. All right? Because we start to associate everything with betrayal. All right? And that's projection. I can't stand the thought of it as me being the betrayer, which is the original belief after I believe I could separate, right? Which brings on the guilt and the fear of punishment, all right? But I have to get rid of those. Ego says, no, you get rid of that thought by pushing it out. Now you push it out on everything, including the guidance of the ego, all right? And then you don't trust the Holy Spirit. you'll think up all different reasons why you really can't trust that, So, and he says, so if you're confused, Jesus says, it's hardly surprising. Okay. So paragraph 6. The Holy Spirit is perfectly trustworthy, as you are. God himself trusts you, and therefore your trustworthiness is beyond question. It will always remain beyond question, however much you may question it. I said before that you are the will of God. His will is not an idle wish. And your identification with his will is not optional, since it is what you are. Sharing his will with me is not really open to choice, though it may seem to be. The whole separation lies in this error. The only way out of the error is to decide that you do not have to decide anything. Everything has been given you by God's decision. That is his will, and you cannot undo it. That's a powerful paragraph, all right? You could dwell on that for quite a while. And if you ingested it, so to speak, if you took it in and realized what he was saying there, you would have the whole meaning of the Course. You would have the whole meaning of existence. Okay? You are the will of God, and his will is not an idle wish. Oh, I wish you were, my offspring. No, he says, no, it's not an idle wish, right? And your identification with that will is not optional. He says, you really don't have a choice. You think you had the choice to believe in separation. He says, but you're not separate, all right? You're not. All right? Your identification with his will is not optional, since that is what you are. You are God's will. Sharing his will with me is not really open to choice. He says, you just do. He says, you're kidding yourself. You think that's a choice. All right? So it may seem to be, all right? It's not open to choice, though it may seem to be. The whole separation lies in this error. All right? So I make a mistake. All right? I think that I can have a separate will from God. Right? So, and the only way out of this error is to decide that you do not have to decide anything. Okay? In other places, he'll say, forget this world, forget this course, and come with holy empty hands unto your God. All right? And another place he'll say, I need do nothing. All right? You don't have to do anything to achieve your place in the kingdom. It's there. It's who you are. All right? We think we have to do things in this experience here, all right, this experience of time and space, okay, which is what my father used to say I majored in college, it's time and space. I have so many fond memories of my father. Okay, so He says, everything has been given you by God's decision. That is his will, and you cannot undo it. Right? This is another statement of the atonement principle, which says you never left. Okay? If you could realize that, God has given you everything, and you can't undo it. Okay? It's who you are. Your function is to extend everything joyfully. And you will be joyful when you realize it. So, paragraph 7. Even the relinquishment of your false decision-making prerogative, which the ego guards so jealously, is not accomplished by your wish. It was accomplished for you by the will of God, who has never left you comfortless. His voice will teach you how to distinguish between pain and joy, and will lead you out of the confusion you have made. There is no confusion in the mind of a son of God, whose will must be the will of the Father, because the Father's will is his Son. Right? These are things that, as you read the Course and get deeper into the Course, and you take these things they're like explosions, very gentle explosions, but I guess as we used to say in the 60s, it'll blow your mind. It's like, whoa, it's the aha moment, and there's plenty of them here in the book, believe me. And there's plenty of them on other paths. This is not the only way home, all right? Don't ever let anybody tell you that. This is the only way, okay? He says, even the relinquishment of your false decision-making prerogative, all right? It's not accomplished by your wish. It's already been done. Jesus is telling us nothing happened. Okay? Nothing happened. You never separated. All right? You had a thought. And as he says, not one note in heaven's song was missed. All right? We don't realize the power of the mind. Okay? What comes up for me right now is that when you're sleeping and you have a dream, sometimes the dream goes on and on and on. And then you wake up and you look at the clock and, oh, I've only been sleeping for, a minute. Well, I just went up, I just went to the sink, I got a drink of water, and I came back, it was 1:30. All right, you wake up and it's 1:32. And you had fallen asleep and had this huge dream, like a big production movie. All right? That's, trying to put into words our experience here. All right? It's the blink of an eye. All right? I don't know. All these images come up sometimes. You watch a fireworks display, right? So the mortar goes up and there's an explosion, and followed immediately by another explosion. It goes boom, boom. Right? To me, that's how the thought of separation came, as the first boom. And then boom. The atonement principle was right behind it. We left. No, you didn't. All right? And this is what he's saying. You never left. It's not accomplished by your wish, this return home. It was accomplished for you by the will of God, who has not left you comfortless. Okay? So the will of God has not left us comfortless because we have the memory of our true existence. We have the memory of that in the mind. All right? That's what he means when he refers to God's voice. All right? His voice will teach you how to distinguish between pain and joy, how to distinguish between the ego and the right mind. The ego, the thought of separation, and the fact that you never separated. Right? The voice, the memory of who you are, the Holy Spirit will teach you how to distinguish between the two. Okay? And this voice will lead you out of the confusion you have made. There is no confusion in the mind of a Son of God, right? Whose will must be the will of the Father, because the Father's will is His Son. You can see how in these statements, in these thoughts, there is no separation, all right? There is no separation, all right? And there's no confusion when you're in that state of mind, okay? And I know, I think like 2 sessions back, there was the idea of patience, all right? If I can find it quickly, I'll find it. But if I don't, I won't take up your time. All right. But the idea of patience is that the person who realizes these things, that I am the product of the will of God. Right? As Jesus would say, I and the Father are one. All right. A person who's in that state of mind can be infinitely patient walking through this dream. You can be infinitely patient with everyone and everything, okay? Because you know who you are. You know where you are, and you know who everyone else is too. Ultimately, you see through the disguises, and you know who they are. At one point, Jesus will refer to that as charity. All right? That's true charity, when you see through the disguise and you know them as a part of your loving mind. All right? And this is what we're meant to do, extend those thoughts. Okay. Paragraph 8. Miracles are in accord with the will of God, whose will you do. Wait, let me begin again, okay? I get too elevated, let's say. Miracles are in accord with the will of God, whose will you do not know because you are confused about what you will. This means that you are confused about what you are. If you are God's will and do not accept His will, you are denying joy. The miracle is therefore a lesson in what joy is. Being a lesson in sharing, it is a lesson in love, which is joy. Every miracle is thus a lesson in truth. And by offering truth, you are learning the difference between pain and joy. All right? Miracles are in accord with the will of God. All right? We experience miracles here because we need them. We need the change in perception. All right? We need the change in perception. Because you don't know who you are. Okay? So the miracle is therefore a lesson in what joy is. That change in perception is a connection with your true self. All right? And in that instant, that holy instant, everything drops away. Time and space drops away, and you are that. You are your true self. Right? So every miracle is a lesson in what joy is. And we seem to have that experience of experiencing that in that instant and running away from it because we're afraid of it. We're afraid of that guide. Right? We don't trust that guide yet. But each time we go to that space in our mind and say, help me to see correctly, I need a miracle, right? As the Grateful Dead would say. I need a miracle every day, all right? But I need one every moment, so to speak, all right? And when we go there, we're reinforcing the idea of going there and the idea of joy. It becomes stronger and stronger in our experience, all right? Until the relinquishment of form and time and space becomes easier and easier. All right? So it's not a sacrifice. You don't have to fear it. Okay? So being a lesson in sharing, it is a lesson in love, which is joy, because that joy that we experience, we want to share it. I want you to be as joyful as I am. All right? That's a very loving thing. So every miracle is thus a lesson in truth. And by offering truth, you are learning the difference between pain and joy. Okay? By offering truth. All right? You're learning the difference between the ego thought system and the will of God. And more, you're preferring the will of God. And more, you are preferring joy over the pain of the ego. All righty then, okay? So, think about that for a while, okay? And realize that you can trust the Spirit and even notice when you don't, all right? Doesn't make you bad, it just makes you confused. You're not condemned to hell or anything like that. It's not a sin. You know, you could say at this point, I realize I don't trust. And just ask, help me with that. Help me. And that's how we work our way. That's how we learn the difference between pain and joy. We get those miracles. Help me to see correctly. All righty then. I will continue in the next session. All right. Have a great day.